Okay, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Ajuri Folari. Well, our guest this morning is Ajuri Ngelale. He's in our Abuja studio, Senior Special Assistant to President Muhammadu Buhari on Public Affairs. He's also the he's an assistant principal spokesperson for the Tinubu Shetima Presidential Campaign Council. A fine morning to you, Ajuri, after that mouthful, but I had to do it correctly.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Uncle Yori, and good morning to our esteemed viewers.
Indeed. Great to have you. It's been quite a while. You know, we're in the middle of it right now. Very, very shortly, we shall be going to the electorate, and in a very, in very little time, we'll be knowing indeed who will be who will be taking over from President Muhammadu Buhari among the field of contestants for that highly esteemed job. So, of course, the question comes up as to whoever indeed takes over the office, through the electorate, will be building on the achievements of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. Now, you've been working, I just described you as the Senior Special Assistant to President Muhammadu Buhari on public affairs. How much has been done? As you know, a nation's work is never done. How much has been done such that whoever is taking over can feel in a very, very good place for having taken over from Muhammadu Buhari?
Thanks once again, Uncle Yori. I think the major element here to appreciate is that within the context of two economic recessions and a once-in-a-century global pandemic, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari has truly laid the foundation for modern Nigeria. And the way he has done so is by really prudently managing the very limited and scarce, oil and gas earnings, really moving aggressively into agriculture and manufacturing, really trying to ensure that we get as many revenue generation sources as possible. Obviously, the news yesterday was from the Federal Inland Revenue Service that we were able to cross 10 trillion naira, 10.1 trillion naira for the 2022 financial year, which is, of course, a historic record-breaking quantum of resource from the FIRS. I think that's indicative of the fact that we have made very wise investments, and we're starting to see a return on those investments. Let me say that when we discuss the issue of infrastructure, you're really looking at a cross-sectoral set of infrastructural investments that will have multifarious impact, not just over the next few years, but over the next several decades. Let's start from the fact that from 2015, before 2015, there was not a single high-speed standard gauge rail line in operation in this country. Today, there are three. The Lagos-Abeokuta-Ibadan Railway, of course, well known to Nigerians living in that axis. The Warri-Ajeokuta-Itakpe Rail Line, 326 kilometers, linking the south-south to the north-central. And then, of course, the Abuja to Kaduna Rail Line, which we are aggressively expanding up to Kano as we speak. Before 2015, you did not have a single new international airport terminal in operation in this country. Today, there are essentially 5. You have the new Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport that was opened in 2017. The new Murtala Mohammed International Airport Terminal opened at the end of last year, or the middle part of last year. The new Port Harcourt International Airport opened in 2018, and the new Aminu Kano International Airport that has since been opened for traffic recently, but will soon be formally commissioned. And then, of course, the Kano Ibiam International Airport in Enugu will be opened over the next several months. The point here is whether it is airport or even seaport, where we have the new Lekki Deep Sea Port, which President Muhammadu Buhari inaugurated and commissioned just yesterday. The first deep sea port built in Nigeria in over 40 years was started and completed under this administration, which is not an accident. And we're moving aggressively to other seaports, the new Badagry Seaport, as well as the new Ibom Deep Sea Port in Akwa Ibom and others. Then, of course, if you look at roads and bridges across this nation, you're going to see several infrastructural interventions. If you look at the Southwest, for example, where you have aggressive work going on the Oyo-Ogbomosho Road, where we are about to also complete the massive Lagos-Shagamu-Ibadan expressway abandoned for 40 years. We have reconstructed it, expanded it, and also added new interchanges. If you look at the Apapa-Oworonshoki Toll Gate Road that we've expanded to effectively 10 lanes using cement technology, you would see how we've been able to open up the Apapa port access with that. In addition to the fact that if you look across the country, the second Niger Bridge, the 300 billion naira investment in the southeast, really unlocking the commercial potential of that region by creating linkages between the southeast and the rest of the country. In addition to that, you have massive work that's gone on the Enugu-Port Harcourt Expressway, Aba-Port Harcourt Expressway, Onitsha-Enugu is being reconstructed by MTN under Presidential Executive Order 7, road tax credit and road refurbishment scheme. There's so much going on. And then, of course, very quickly, if you look at the north, you're looking at the Abuja-Kaduna-Zaria-Kano Expressway, in addition to the Kano-Katsina Expressway going deep into the northwest. And then, of course, the Kano to Maiduguri Expressway, moving from the northwest deep into the northeast. So you find that across this country, the infrastructural interventions have been such that we are unlocking the commercial capabilities of this country, ensuring that we facilitate effective import-export flows, ensuring that we link all regions of this country to be able to take advantage and leverage on the comparative advantages of each of the geopolitical zones of the country across agriculture, manufacturing, and so many others. These are really exciting times, and I think President Muhammadu Buhari, and I've just only mentioned 30% of what he has done over the last 7 years, with half the revenues that previous administrations had in half the time that previous administrations had. I believe that this will all make up the foundation stone of what will be modern Nigeria, to be delivered by God's grace, by His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Indeed. Thank you, Ajuri. And whereas there's no denying the developmental achievements of the PMB administration, there are also areas that indeed, should the country vote for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, there are things he's going to have to be fixing. Inflation is one thing. You might say that that's hardly anyone's fault, because there was a time when we were actually looking a bit good in terms of monetary policies and all of that. At one time, I think we were described as something like the strongest economy in Africa. A lot was made about it by you, your good self, and many colleagues. But now we have a situation where everybody is complaining. Your naira is probably half as strong as it was when Buhari took over in the Bukateria. What you could do with 200 naira at that time, you can only do with, with about 500 naira today. That's where it relates to the ordinary person. Apart from that, as you know, the dollar has managed to climb to 74, 75 naira, 740, between 740 and 750 to the dollar. These areas, what exactly happened? Because what's your understanding and your read? Because if it could have been fixed, PMB's administration would have fixed it. What exactly is going on there?
You're absolutely right, Yori, in saying that if it's something that Mr. President could have forestalled, he certainly would have forestalled it. I think the first point is to acknowledge the fact that whenever you have a crisis, external shocks, whether it's coming from the vicissitudes of the global economic environment in which you have around the world, not just in Nigeria, rising interest rates to really tamp down international inflation rates that are rising around the world, both in developed economies as well as developing economies. Everybody is facing the tough conditions brought by the twin troubles of the recovery that is yet to fully conclude from the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, and what that has meant for energy prices, what that has meant for even the global supply chains around food production and export. So there are a lot of issues in the global economy leading to rising inflation, rising interest rates, rising unemployment around the world. Even the U.S. economy, it appears, is moving toward recession, in addition to many others. So certainly Nigeria is not operating in a silo. It is going to be affected by the energy crisis. It's going to be affected by the distortion in global supply chains. But what we are telling our people, and this is why His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has really named this campaign the Renewed Hope Campaign. It is not in any way a suggestion that President Muhammadu Buhari has fallen short or has not done well. It's an acknowledgement of the reality of the global economic environment in which we're operating, and the fact that we have to move very aggressively to forestall some of the more adverse impacts of that, of these phenomenon on the Nigerian economy. Now, on the currency question, you've rightly alluded to the issue of devaluation, which of course has been paramount on the minds of our people, and rightly so. It is in the interest of President Muhammadu Buhari and the ruling All Progressives Congress for the Naira to be strong. It is in the interest of anybody who is in government, and even in the interest of our people, of course, for the Naira to be strong. That would be what we would be campaigning on. So if the Naira has fallen, the question is, why has it fallen? Why hasn't the president stopped it? Mm-hmm. Understand this. Any country, and I want to, anybody can verify this. When there are external shocks, whether caused by global economic conditions or otherwise, there's only one way to bolster your currency at a time of shock, right, or crisis. And the way you do that is by cash injection. You buffer your currency with an injection of your foreign exchange that you've been able to keep away, whether in a sovereign wealth fund or whether in an excess crude account or an excess savings account or your foreign reserves. Wherever you are sourcing your foreign exchange from, your buffer, that is where you will now extract from. The problem we had was that President Muhammadu Buhari came into office in 2015. And between 2004 and 2015, there was an excess crude account that had inflows of up to 107 billion US dollars. By the time Mr. President entered office, 105 billion US dollars had been spent out of that 107 billion dollars, leaving 2 billion in that account. The foreign reserves had been drawn down from the Obasanjo era of about $60 billion down to about $27 billion, barely enough to cater for the needs of the nation in case of a global economic emergency for about 5 months. So essentially at the shallow end of the pool, so to speak. There was no, wealth fund or savings from which we were in a position to draw from to be able to bolster our currency. So naturally it is going to slide, and it's sliding, it has. So this is the situation. And then on top of that, my dear brother, if you look at a place like Japan now, where the dollar is very strong, so all of these other countries that are under the weather, so to speak, of the global economic situation, they are fighting now, bolstering their currency. Japan spent $34 billion in the month of October. I didn't say in 2022. In the month of October alone, the Japanese government spent $34 billion to bolster the Japanese yen against the US dollar, to maintain their currency value. So what is going to be the situation of a country like ours, where we had, administrators stealing the money, signing out $300 million, billions of dollars from the Central Bank of Nigeria before Mr. President came into office, reserves depleted across the board? Naturally, we have to go through the painful process of watching our currency slide, and that has been one of the very sad points in what has otherwise been a very positive set of developments for the Nigerian state in terms of infrastructure and social investment under President Muhammadu Buhari's watch. Mm.
You touched on something I also want to talk about, because when President Muhammadu Buhari was coming into office, all Nigeria was agog, that, yep, now we got something, we got someone who can confront those seemingly especially Nigerian problems. I'm talking about corruption here. When I said you touched on it briefly, I'm talking about corruption here. People had felt that Muhammadu Buhari would indeed put paid to corruption. Here was a military man. He's explained to us that he's a Democrat now, but here was a man who was not going to stand for nonsense and would bring corruption to the levels where we know that it has been affected. I don't know what your opinion is, but there are, at least it is being said commonly that the fight against corruption, whereas it might have been addressed, many would think that they have not seen the impact of it in terms of, yeah, maybe you can't wipe it out, but you can bring it down to a level where where everybody knows that government is not playing. But it does look in some areas as if things are going on as before. That's one of the things that Tinubu is going to come and have to try his hand at, because it's always easier when you're on the outside. This is what should be done. You know, this is how it should do. Why aren't they doing this? But that, again, it seems to me, is one of the things that a Tinubu administration, should he be elected, is going to have to come and deal with. So there's a sense in which the hope that Buhari would radically affect corruption. I don't know what your estimation is as to how well it has gone.
This is really a multi-pronged issue in the sense that, on the one hand, there really needs to be two modes of battle when we talk about the war on corruption. One is preventative, and one is reactionary. You have to react to corrupt practices that have already been undertaken. Then you need to work hard also to ensure that on the preventative leg, you put in place the procedures and the reforms necessary to ensure that you forestall future corrupt practice. Let me get to each one. On the issue of asset recovery, I can state empirically, without any emotion or sentiment, that President Muhammadu Buhari has done more in the asset recovery space of the anti-corruption war than any previous civilian, military, or set of civilian administrations combined. We know, as a matter of empirical fact, that between 2009 and 2019, that's a 10-year period, that in terms of just Naira recoveries by the EFCC, that's not including pounds, dollars, euros, land allocations, plots of land and all of that, CFOs and all of that. But in terms of Naira recoveries, the EFCC recovered 1.2 trillion Naira between 2009 and 2019, a 10-year period. Between 2009 and 2015 of that period, the EFCC had only recovered 230-something billion Naira. Right? Meaning that under President Muhammadu Buhari's administration from 2015 to 2019, the first 4 years of the administration, we had recovered a 939 billion Naira out of 1.2 trillion. Meaning that the first 6 years, only about 20-something% of it was done. We tripled that rate during the first 4 years of our administration as against the previous 6 years. And not to speak of what we've done up until 2023. And again, that is not including dollars, pounds, euros, and others. So the point here is that on asset recovery, we have done far more than any combination of civilian administrations combined when it comes to getting back the assets stolen from the Nigerian people and then now leveraging on those assets to put in place infrastructure for the Nigerian people. Like the second Niger Bridge was funded by recovered loot. The Lagos-Shagamu-Ibadan Expressway, funded by recovered loot. The Abuja-Kaduna-Zaria-Kano Expressway, funded by recovered loot. So that's one end. On the other end, my brother, on the preventative side, I think it is worth noting. Sometimes I believe that there's a tendency towards short memory on the public analysis of some of the issues as we analyze the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. What do I mean? People forget how bad it was, quite simply. Before 2015, we were all in this country between 2010 and 2015, where it seemed like every week there was a new scandal from a new ministry, department, or agency under Goodluck Jonathan's federal government. There was a new thing. If it wasn't a recruitment scandal of immigration service, it was Ministry of Aviation scandal, diversion of funds, using funds meant for one purpose to buy bulletproof cars, theft from the Ministry of Finance, theft from the central bank. I mean, it was just endless scandals, some of them directly involving the incumbent president at that time. There has not been a single instance in which President Muhammadu Buhari or any of his family members has ever been implicated in anything like a corruption scandal, in any kind of wayward practice. Nothing. You may have beer parlor gist, somebody will say, oh, this is happening or that is happening, but nothing concrete, nothing serious. So I guess the point is that we've come a long way. What His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's next stage is going to be is really going to be the preventative side. dealing with the fact that today in Nigeria, and he's talked about this quite openly, today in Nigeria, we ask Nigerians to pay upfront in cash for a house. We ask Nigerians to pay upfront in cash for a car. We ask Nigerians to pay upfront in cash for large appliances like freezers and refrigerators and all of these kind of things. Where we are now is a situation in which His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, understanding that, is saying, look, we need to prevent corruption by removing the motivation that makes Nigerians have to look for money outside of their legitimate incomes to live a better life. So what we are going to do is to establish a consumer credit system under His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in which we will be able to use the Central Bank of Nigeria to provide enhanced monetary policy ratios and enhanced interbank settlement offers to banks across the country to unlock trillions of naira worth of affordable credit for onward lending and distribution to the low-income and middle-income earning Nigerians, so that they can have access to affordable mortgages within their legitimate incomes. Instead of having to worry about paying 1 year's rent upfront, paying for a house and car upfront, you will now be able to say, look, you come to the bank. If you are a woman in a market stall and you're selling textiles, you'll be able to come to the bank and say, here are my bank records. For the last 5 years, I can prove to you that I have a steady income of a median income of 100,000 naira per month. On the basis of that evidence, the bank will now say, okay, we will now give you a mortgage of 20,000 naira per month, where you can have your 5 million naira house, a social house of 5 million naira, 2 bedrooms or whatever, right? And then you now pay your 20,000 naira a month while you're living in that house. Instead of having to pay up the full amount first, you'll be living in it as you're paying on it, enhancing your quality of life. And we're going to do the same thing with automobiles, same thing with large appliances, so that low-income and middle-income Nigerians, whether you're a civil servant, whether you're self-employed, as long as you have evidence of steady earnings, we're going to provide these credit facilities so that Nigerians can have access to those things which for decades now only elites have had access to.
Indeed. You know, I'll tell you what, I've got to take a break now. Please stay with us, Ajuri. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back, and our guest is Ajuri Ngelale, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs, and our guest has worked very closely in the Communications Office of the Vice President, and I know that one of the big focuses was this whole question of the ease of doing business in Nigeria, because it was felt to be quite convoluted and not exactly easy, and so I know that the Vice President set to work on that. It's part of the PMB administration. What's that looking like? Because we talk about subjects every day, and so part of the complaint that we hear from knowledgeable analysts is that, well, policy is an issue. Let me not go ahead and say it's a problem. Policy is an issue. It seems that they're shifting ground, and so the foreign investor, he looks at the horizon. He's not too sure that he can plan the way he can plan in other areas of the world should he go into Nigeria. You were set to address that. What progress has been made in that regard?
You know, it's absolutely true that it has been the experience of this country that foreign direct investors have often said, well, look, there are a lot of ambiguities in terms of the regulations and the general regulatory environment of our federation, even if it has to do with the synergy between the federal and state governments as it relates to issues of taxation or just bureaucratic culture in general. Mm-hmm. Some of these things are not even issues of what is on paper, but what the actual tangible culture of our institutions have been when you enter into some of these agencies. And that's why under President Muhammadu Buhari, we have aggressively been dealing with automation of processes. If you look at the fact that the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, PEBEC, under the chairmanship of His Excellency the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, one of the elements of that body was to really address those areas where the shoe is pinching the foot of the investor. And many of those areas had to do with issues around timelines, predictable timelines of how long will it take for me, for example, to register a business. then once I registered my business, what is how easy is the process of paying my taxes, for example? How easy is the process of resolving disputes and all of that? And what we went to work to do very quickly was we were able to, through the Corporate Affairs Commission, we were able to streamline and automate the processes of business name registration from sometimes 3 to 5 months down to about 24 hours, where you'll have your business name within 24 hours. We were able to streamline and align, rather, the processes of the FIRS with the CAC in such a way that you can clear your taxes, pay your taxes all online in the comfort of your home or business. We have been able to, really working with the chief judges of the Lagos and Kano High Courts, we were able to introduce alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, such as small claims courts, where we now have courts dedicated to resolving small claims in a finite short-term period of time, and also providing mediation processes as well to even avoid having to go through the full court process if that is amenable to both parties. So as a result of all of that, the World Bank attested that Nigeria was one of the top 10 most improving nations in the entire world in the ease of doing business. That was not by magic wand, that was by the hard work of the Muhammadu Buhari-led administration. And that work continues till today. We were named out of the last 3 years of that particular survey from the World Bank as one of the top moving countries in the ease of doing business rankings worldwide. And we're very, very proud of that. So the work continues. Now, I think what's also very important is when we talk about the mainstay of the Nigerian economy, and we talk about oil and gas. I mentioned a lot of infrastructural investments earlier on around road, bridge, airport, seaport, and of course even power plants. When you talk about the new 700 megawatt Zungeru hydroelectric power project that's coming on stream within the next 60 days, that's going to add a huge quantum to our grid, to our national grid. But when you look at the oil and gas sector, the quantum of investments that Mr. President has made very quietly is astounding. Let me be very clear about this. Number one, we have aggressively moved from crude oil into gas because we recognize gas is the fuel of the future. When crude oil dries up, our gas is going to be there, and it's something that we can do even in the era of climate change. So what we've done under this administration is we invested $12 billion in the new NLNG Train 7 project, which is going to add 1/3 of our current total gas production capacity to that current total within the next 1.5 years, approximately. That will be completed. We're already at about 50 to 60% completion on that. In addition to expanding our gas production, Mr. President said, look, it's not enough just to expand gas and have gas available. That's one element. The other critical element is how do you transport that gas to industries so that there are off-takers and buyers for that gas. And so what he did was invested billions of dollars in the new Escravos to Lagos gas pipeline system 2, that is ELPS 2, essentially dualizing the original Escravos to Lagos pipeline system that had been in place since 1989. There had been no new update or modernization to that pipeline. And that is the critical feed line of gas from the Niger Delta into Western Nigeria, empowering industries across Lagos, Ogun State, and across Western Nigeria. He has now doubled the supply of gas into Western Nigeria very quietly over the last 7 years. In addition to that, he built the $2.8 billion Ajeokuta to Kaduna to Kano gas pipeline, which is now going to massively export gas from the Niger Delta all across the north so that we can have new industries cropping up across the north, from textiles, like the old days, pharmaceuticals, plastics production, petrochemicals, and many others. In addition to that, that line is not just for northern industrialization. That's just a benefit of it. That line is actually the foundation piece of the Nigerian Trans-Sahara gas pipeline, which is going to cross through Niger Republic into the Algerian pipeline system, carrying gas from the Niger Delta all the way through the north, all the way through the Sahara, into the Algerian pipeline system, taking Nigerian gas for the first time via pipeline into Western Europe, earning Nigeria billions of dollars annually in new gas revenues by pipeline export to Western Europe, really replacing the Russian gas that they have put an embargo on to the benefit of the Nigerian state. These are massive investments. And then, of course, when you look at crude oil, the refining, reconstruction of refineries in the country, what you're looking at is the new Port Harcourt refinery, the new reconstruction of the Port Harcourt refinery owned by the NNPC, We had been reconstructing that refinery for the last 2 years for about $1.9 billion. We're proud to report that by March, that is within the next 60 days, Phase 1 will be completed, meaning we're going to have the first mass quantum of refined petroleum motor spirit coming out of that refinery into the Nigerian market for the first time in over 30 years. Phase 2 will be completed by the end of this year as well. In addition to that, Mr. President recently visited his counterpart, the South Korean president in South Korea, where they signed a landmark agreement for an internationally respected EPC contractor, Daewoo, that is familiar, people are familiar with Daewoo. They've constructed refineries around the world. They are coming to reconstruct the Kaduna and Wari NNPC refineries. And that is not including the fact that we have taken 20% ownership stake in the Dangote refinery, meaning the billions of dollars in profit that the Dangote refinery will be making, we will be making 20% of that to the Federation coffers. And then we have also incentivized the establishment of private refineries. Obviously, the Dangote refinery is coming on stream by May, which is going to satisfy local demand. But the last point on this, Uncle Yori, is that we have also incentivized the establishment of a new 200,000 barrels per day refinery in Akwa Ibom State by BUA under Abdul Samad Rabiu, and another 100,000 barrels per day refinery in Port Harcourt, right next to the NNPC refinery, where we're also taking ownership stake of that new refinery that is co-locating with the old Port Harcourt refinery. So across the board, Mr. President is positioning us to explore new oil in the north, where we have $3 billion invested in the Kolmani oil field. We've just announced that we're drilling new oil in Nasarawa starting in March. In 60 days, we'll be drilling in Nasarawa. And exploration activities are going on in the Anambra Basin, in the Benue Trough, and across this country. So there is a lot to look forward to in terms of new revenues for the Nigerian state under His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, given the foundation laid by President Muhammadu Buhari.
Indeed. You know, and I've got to take another break, but when we come back, I want you to bear in mind, Ajuri, that there's also a need to look at a rationale for the electorate to prefer APC beyond Muhammadu Buhari and Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The vehicle, the roadmap that we all know, the rationale to persuade the Nigerian voter to indeed choose the candidate of APC is another thing. So we'll address that when we come back from this break. And also, as we're going, you can also call in, with your calls, and we'll take them, and Ajuru will look at them as well. Stay with us, please. He's the Senior Special Assistant to President Muhammadu Buhari on Public Affairs, and he also functions as the Assistant Principal Spokesperson for the Tinubu Shettima Presidential Campaign Council. So as we said, calls can come in if there are any comments, maybe questions, so you can participate in the matter. But so as we await call, I was saying, Ajuri, that there's also this whole matter about the APC vehicle that, quite frankly, is conveying President Muhammadu Buhari and will be conveying in the presidency whoever wins. But in this case, it's going to be Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as long as we're talking about APC. So this whole matter about that slant to it. It's one thing to look at the personalities, but also the party. How the party becoming acceptable up and down the land wherever APC has the stake. That's also important, isn't it, Ajuri? Okay, we'll take calls. We'll take calls at the moment. I think some things are going on. Ajuri is still with us, and we're trying to see how to take calls as well. And Ajuri will be hearing those calls. I hope Ajuri is hearing me now. He's in our Abuja studio. I'm in Lagos. I hope he's hearing me now. So when the calls come in, Ajuri will be able to hear them.
Is people-to-people communication. So I'm very happy to share with all the information. I thank you all for your patience. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. President, sir, Governor of Lagos State, all other courtesies duly extended. It is now time to listen to our own governor, Mr. Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu, as he addresses this gathering. Mr. Governor, sir.
At the breaking of the day, I thank my maker, say I see today.
Thank you very much. The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Your Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, the Chinese Ambassador to Nigeria, Excellency Chu Zhengqin, and other foreign ambassadors that are here. My lovely wife, Madam First Lady, thank you very much. Mr. Deputy Governor and his lovely wife, honorable ministers that are here, thank you very much. The Speaker, Lagos State House of Assembly, and members of this great assembly that are here, Lagos State Council members, our traditional rulers that are here.
I hear that we, well, as you can see, this is a live coverage. You know, the president, as you've just seen there, is in Lagos, being hosted by the Lagos State Governor. But we also have Femi calling in from the UK in relation to our ongoing program. Of course, we'll take you back there, you know, to the live coverage of the president in Lagos. But Femi in the UK, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Uncle Yori. How are you?
Very well. Thank you for calling in. Yes. Did you want to contribute to the whole question of about the, you know, changeover, the footprints of Buhari and what the candidate that follows him will have to build upon? Of course, it is well hoped that the candidate to follow him will be Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But, you know, that's the general theme. Is that what you wanted to comment on?
Yes, yes.
Please go ahead.
Firstly, I need to congratulate the gentleman with the. He was so explicit in his.
Ajuri Ngelale, yeah.
Ajuri, yeah. He was so explicit in the achievement of the Buhari. However, what the government has not done, the government has not been aggressive enough in explaining all this achievement. Hence, most people are so naive and they say, oh, they have not achieved anything. You understand? And I believe if Ahmed Bola Tinubu able to succeed, Nigeria is going to be in the greater heights. I have no doubt regarding that. And I so much and passionately, for the last 7 years compared to the last 16 years of this locust that has taken over our country and destroyed everything. Thank God for Buhari for rescuing the nation, regardless of what people are going to say. People are going to be negative. It doesn't matter. But we need to be focused. Ahmed Tinubu need to be focused. I know we're going places. Thank you, Ajuri, for your contribution. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Femi, for calling in from the UK. Okay, Ajuri, I wonder if you were able to hear that, because what Femi in the UK was saying, first of all, he was commending your clarity of expression, so that to him, he has a very, very clear picture of what you know, has been done by President Muhammadu Buhari, and you know, what the takeover, what the continuation will be like. But as I said, we're taking calls now. I don't know if Ajuri can hear or not, but if there are any other calls, we'll take them, and Ajuri can then react to them. So the calls we're still open to take calls if there are any. But in the meantime, you also saw there that the Lagos State government, and in particular the governor there, is hosting the president. He's in town to indeed flag off some milestone projects of the Sanwo-Olu administration in Lagos State. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk with Ajuri about, the whole matter about the APC legacy across the country, the roadmap. This goes back to the roadmap because APC as a party is working to a plan. This is going to have to continue. Of course, there will be different personal flavors to it, and that's what we are seeing. And as soon as we can get Ajuri back, we can discuss it. But in the meantime, this is a live event going on in parallel with our program, and you will probably be handing you over to the program as soon as we are done here for the moment.
Very clear, including on constitutional holding of funds, at critical times for Lagos State. But we have moved on, and Lagos is continuing the rising, and we're beginning to see big, bold developments happening under your watch. Thankfully, those dark days are behind us. The completion of this blue line here, the first rail system by a subnational in Africa with a sea crossing. Mr. President, you will cross sea with this rail track. It's a testament that indeed the dark days of oppression are behind us as a government.
Well, Mazi Okoroafo.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, Mr. Gigere.
Okay.
I want to find out, Mr. Gigere, the situation of Nigerian politics today. So, what is the federal government doing to stop this issue of political congress? Because every rally, you see some students turning the arena as if it was how would I call it, as if it was not planned. And it's getting boring. And makes some people afraid going to the arena where there is campaign. And that was notwithstanding. And you look at Mr. Giri, please, can you just look at this Anambra State University?
Well, Mazi, thank you very much for calling in. But as you know, we're trying to look at, shall we say, the footprints of Buhari and what the incoming president will have to do, will have to build upon. That seems to be the focus. That's the focus of our conversation. But you've also introduced this whole matter, which is it's ongoing. It's a very, very current matter that you introduced. Ajuri in our Abuja studio. That's the second call we've taken. Let me just make a note of that in case. Okay, Ajuri. It seems to me clear. Okay, we've got two questions that Ajuri is going to have to comment on now. Number one is easier in the sense that Femi in the UK was, first of all, thanking you for your clarity of expression. So he now has a very, very up-to-date notion of what indeed President Muhammadu Buhari has been able to achieve. And he also bemoans the fact that Nigerians, because of poor communication, according to him, of all these successes, are much the poorer for it. That's on the one hand. And then you're hearing Mazi. Well, Mazi is asking a much more immediate kind of a question. He's talking about political thuggery and perhaps also commenting on the song and dance that you seem to see at most of these rallies. That was what he was talking about. But let's keep the calls coming. We have two so far, and Ajuri Ngelale will address them. Ajuri, I just need to know how much of what is going on that you can actually hear. And I also said in the background, you know now that the reception, the president, is in a venue with the Lagos State governor there. And we've seen, all the stakeholders come together. Mr. President is in Lagos, as you well know, to, flag off some of the milestone projects.
I can hear you.
Okay. So,
yes, Abuja, yes.
Maybe you have to take two questions. The first one was thanking you
said connect the call
from the UK. The first one was thanking you from the UK. You heard that? The first one was actually more of a commentary. He was appreciating your clarity of expression. So he now knows and he's happy that a lot of Nigerians know the great work that Muhammadu Buhari has done. So that's on the one hand. But Mazi Okoroafo also called in, and his concern has been, it's a much more immediate sort of phenomenon. He's not talking so much about the footprints and continuing. He's talking about the conduct of political thugs, as he put it. So I explained that, of course, that's not the focus of our program, but he still asked it, and maybe you want to comment on those things.
Yes, thank you very much, Yori. So, of course, I appreciate all feedback from our people, whether it's positive or negative, as long as it is constructive and helps me do a better job in serving them. I'm very happy to receive that. So I thank the caller very much for that. And on the issue of electoral violence, the position of President Muhammadu Buhari has been exceptionally clear. In fact, it was just, I believe, last week, if I'm not mistaken, that His Excellency, the new Executive Governor of Osun State, Governor Adeleke, came to the State House and was saying to President Muhammadu Buhari that he has proven himself that he's truly the father of the nation, that he provided an exercise in which any political party could win an election, which is a testament to the commitment of our administration to a free and fair election across the country. So if there's anybody toting weapons, putting out political thugs and the like, I happen to be in Ogoniman from Rivers State. I have a very good sense of what electoral violence looks like in my community and many others like mine, where voting has not taken place in my state since 1999. Governors have simply written themselves into office. So I understand the issue, but I would just say that President Muhammadu Buhari, through the passage of the Electoral Act in its assent, and through his subsequent actions, providing every bit of logistical and financial support needed to the INEC, and many other steps taken with the security agencies, he is ensuring that Nigerians will have their will respected, their decision respected, and whoever they vote are those who will be elected into office in the coming general elections.
All right, then. I want to thank you very much, Ajuri Ngelale, Senior Special Assistant to President Buhari on Public Affairs, and also the Assistant Principal Spokesperson in the Tinubu Shetima Presidential Campaign Council. Thank you very much, as always, for making time. It's always a delight to speak with you, Ajuri. That's our program today, then. Do join us tomorrow for a fresh edition, and we'll now leave you, I imagine, with the live coverage of the President in Lagos.